in China, but then his father set up the China Bhavan in Shantiniketan, and his father had connections with Chiang Kai-shek, and that is how he has been very, very instrumental in bringing about the growth of Chinese studies in India. Now he coined this term called Himalaya sphere, which is very interesting, and I did not get to read the book because the book was not published then, but he did talk about this concept in detail in one of the conferences that was hosted by the Institute of Chinese Studies. And basically, the Himalaya sphere is geographical, it's fundamentally geographical, but it covers, the disciplines that it covers it's magnanimous, it's just there's a plethora of disciplines that it covers, be it from geosciences, social scientists, life sciences. The entire Himalayan region is bubbling with disciplines. And this is something that I also wanted to talk to you about, because this is a center for Himalayan studies. So there is so much of interdisciplinarity in this center itself, be it any geosciences, life science, social sciences. I'm standing over here and looking at the Himalayan region as a political strategist. This is my area, and I'm using it for my purpose and how this region serves as strategic and security purposes. So, the Himalayas. Okay, the first tool that I want to look at is China's annexation policy in the Himalayan region. Now, the Tibet factor is a very, very, it is the biggest factor in when we're talking about this instrument of policy that China has used. Tibet is definitely integral to understanding China's Himalayan strategy, and we'll look at the buffer zone concept, the outer and the inner. I'll just explain a little into it. Can you go back again? Yeah, okay. Now, during the colonial period, when the Tibet was viewed as a strategic position, because you had the Tsarist Russia on one hand, and then you had the Qing dynasty, and then you had British India, and the contention was that whoever gets the heartland the Tibet was considered the heartland, and whoever gets control of this region would have control of Asia. So this was what the great game was. And now, during the British period, Tibet was more of an outer buffer for British India. And the inner buffer was the Himalayan kingdoms. China, after the establishment of the PRC, China wanted to change that equation, because Mao specifically said that the lips feel cold without the teeth feel cold without the lips. So what he was saying is that if the Tibet region is under the influence of British India, then it is very, very open. The rest of China is very open to any kind of entry. It becomes an entry point for the British to bring some kind of influence over there. So he wanted to change this equation, and then the annexation that happened in the 1950s. So. So now the buffer zone concept, this is exactly the outer and the inner. Now Mao has changed the dynamic, he's changed the equation of this. Now, according to Professor Davenport, what he says is that China's intervention was based on the rationale of historical linkages, and therefore China argues, and China says that they liberated Tibet. But based on these historical linkages. But then what he says is that if there was, if Tibet was considered as a historical linkages, so is Vietnam, so is Mongolia, and so is South Korea, so are the Southeast Asian countries, so is Thailand. Why haven't those territories been liberated? Quote unquote liberated in that sense. So what he says is that it is only an alibi, this historical linkages, this liberation policy that China is attempting or has attempted towards Tibet is only an alibi to gain strategic advantage, to get a kind of to get China's securing a strategic stronghold, and it is not just historical claims. The historical claims is only an alibi for China to take to annex Tibet. And today also, when we look at Arunachal, China is making similar claims that we have historical linkages in Arunachal. Now, if they had a historical link, it goes back again. Why not the other, the countries that kind of surrounds China? Why aren't they interested in that? It's because Arunachal brings about strategic importance to China's entire Himalayan, towards the Himalayan belt. So, okay. Now, the basis of the premises on is the annexation of Tibet was followed by infrastructural development and not social or economic reforms. Now, also, even if they said that it was historical, they did not bring about social reforms, they did not bring about economic reforms. They went directly into infrastructural development. So the main thing was that they wanted to bring their presence in that region, and the most quickest method, the most quickest way was through infrastructural development. So China took over Tibet in 1950s, 52 was complete, and then by 1975 the highway, the Lhasa-Chengdu highway was constructed. It was the main linkage with the mainland China, Tibet with mainland China. Okay, now Mao Zedong's theory of palm and fingers, and he says that Tibet is a palm, and it has 5 fingers. 5 fingers it was the kingdom of Ladakh then. Then you have Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, and you have the northeast frontier province, that is present-day Arunachal. So he has talked about how Tibet as a palm has been cut off from its fingers, and it is important to bring the 5 fingers into the fold. So we are looking at China's strategy as, not just certain pockets of the Himalayan region. We are looking at the entire region as a very holistic perspective. Next, please. All right. Before I go into the next tool of Chinese strategic culture, just go a little into the construction of these roads. Now, this is the present day scenario. Okay, the Lhasa-Chengdu highway, that is marked by the blue line. Okay, that is it was built by 75. It was complete, and then you have these 4 roads which are marked in yellow. These connect. These are the roads which connect, Tibet with the lower Himalayan region, that is towards the Arunachal and Bhutan. Now, S201, that highway, it is constructed, but it does not have any kind of strategic importance. It is there as a connection, and there is not much of, because of the geographical terrain, because there's a lot of landslides, there's a lot of the terrain is not very conducive for easy movement. But nonetheless, they have constructed this this highway. The second one is which has not been numbered. It is the one over here. It is connecting Medo, and it is in this. It is in the Siang River region. So that is also part of Arunachal, and that road that connects with the main highway, that does not have too much of strategic importance. The third highway, that is the S202, this is extremely crucial because over here is where the military beefing up, the strategic entire beefing up is in this connection, and it connects with Tawang. Now Tawang is 2,500 meters above sea level, which is at a lower, which has a lower altitude than the Bumla. The Bumla is around 4,000, and then further up is around 4,500 to 5,000. So the Chinese have a very, very strong strategic advantage in that region towards Tawang, in that road. Tawang is, so therefore, and Tawang was one of the flashpoints during the 62 war also. And this part, this S202 it is a major, it has major infrastructural facilities, military installments, entire beefing up is happening in that. And even in S204, this road that connects, and what we just experienced in 2017, the Doklam standoff, there is a lot of infrastructure that is being built in this region. Now, Doklam, as I was also discussing with Dr. Vinayak a while back, I looked a lot into resources, and the governments have not come up specifically what kind of installments, what kind of infrastructure construction is happening in that region. And by speculations, it is not just a simple road infrastructure, because road infrastructures have been happening along the Himalayan region in the Chinese side. I think it is more than just the road infrastructure. It's probably railway infrastructures. It is maybe they have an airstrip for military purposes. So for fighting jets to land. It may be for that. That is why it created such a it almost erupted into a confrontation. So it is more than just a normal infrastructure that is being built over there. There's something specifically large in that part. The first two, that is S201 and the Medog Highway, these are heavily forested, so not much of threat that we can expect from there, not much of movement also. Even if there is movement, there would be some kind of infantry movement, there would just be, and to small size artilleries, nothing like big, what you can expect from S202 and 204. Go to the next slide, please. Now, so the infrastructure build-up has been complete. It is overdone, and they are expanding in a large way. The second tool that China is using is through border disputes. 1962. I'll not go into the details. There are many. There's several literature that focuses on this. Neville Maxwell's, then the one which was recently disclosed, the Bhagwat, and this was a confidential report. I was just reading it last night. Bhagwat and Anderson Bhagwat report, which came out in 2014-15, and there it gives the entire detail of the Sino-Indian War and where the Indian policymakers, where we blundered. There was a disconnect between the command and the communications and the command, and even in the leadership. I mean, that report is quite it's quite detailed, but there are certain pages again that are missing over there. That Henderson Books, that's the Henderson Brooks report. Henderson Brooks and Bhagwat Henderson Brooks report. Some pages are missing, and they say that it is the Ministry of External Affairs that did not reveal it. They did not give it. So still, a few things still remain in the dark. Neville Maxwell's book is there. Then John Dalby's The Himalayan Plunder is also there. So these books are there, which talks about the Sino-Indian War. There's several causes, the multi-dimensional perspectives on this war. I won't go really deep into it, but I'll just explain that the dispute happened in the western and the eastern sector. The western sector, which was demarcated by the Macdonald Line, and which includes the Rizangla, the Thagla, you have the Daulat, Beg Oldi, all those parts, which is contested, and then Pangong Lake. After the war, today's Pangong Lake, what we see today, Chinese took over that. But before the Indian territory we had more. They took over and they did not go back. In the Eastern Front, the McMahon Line was the line of dispute. The Chinese did not accept the McMahon Line as the official boundary, okay, because they were not signatories to this line, to this treaty also. Going a little into the leadership of what happened then, it was because of Nehru was facing a lot of pressure, because Nehru had a soft, he was kind of taking a soft stand towards China, and a lot of the Indian public was pressurizing Nehru. There were politicians like J.B. Kripalani also, who was very, very staunch, who had a very anti-China bent of mind. They were aggravated right-wing groups. Nehru's forward policy, where he was moving those posts, where he had encouraged the soldiers to move those posts in the boundary further into Chinese territory, assuming the Chinese would not do anything, assuming that the Chinese would just relent to whatever the army did. And the third most important reason why 1962 happened, and I've talked with a lot of Chinese scholars also, and I said that why did 62 happen? And they said there may be a lot of causes, there may be a lot of reasons between Mao, Chou Enlai, and Nehru, and there were a lot of exchanges of letter. They were very cordial relations, but then the exchange of maps happened, and there was a lot of disagreements. But the main reason of the 1962 was India's involvement in the Tibet imbroglio. When India gave asylum to the Dalai Lama in 1959, this is what irritated the Chinese. And this is what sparked the Chinese to really go and teach India a lesson. This is what they call it, a pedagogical warfare. Pedagogy comes from the word to teach. It's a pedagogical warfare, means to teach a lesson through warfare. And now this Tibet imbroglio, that we probably underplay the importance of it, but for the Chinese, it is the main factor. And a lot of Chinese say that India would not have been attacked had it not supported or had it not involved itself into the Tibet movement and giving asylum to the Dalai Lama. And in turn also, we also saw a similar behavior where Chinese also intervened into Sino-Pak relations. They also started, putting their fingers, they started to intervene, they started to support Pakistan. So we saw a similar kind of a behavior. It was a kind of a tit for tat, maneuver. The domestic implications of the Sino-Indian War in the Chinese side was, again, Mao was going through a lot of crisis. He was going through a leadership crisis. The Great Leap Forward was not doing well. There was a lot of famine that was happening. Mao was desperate to get his leadership back. He was desperate to get his central control, back into his authority, into his hands. And this was not playing out really well. So the India-China war, where he saw that there was, again, a calculated risk, where he saw there was a chance of a victory. This is what also, kind of gave him a little bit of, this also was an incentive for him, let's say, to gain back his leadership power. The polemics with Russia. Which country follows the Marxist doctrine to its T? That was also happening with Russia. And Mao was going through a lot of leadership crisis there, and he felt the need that there needed to be a war. And he was quite confident that the war with India would go in his favor. India, of course, felt betrayed after 1962. India stood for China's permanent membership in the UN, and it also supported. China was also a part of the Bandung Conference on Non-Alignment Movement. So therefore, India saw so much a partnership in that, but then Nehru was totally, he was heartbroken because of a kind of a betrayal that he faced. Again, I explained to you that Pakistan factor in Sino-Indian relations. This kind of was a quid pro quo move by China to India's involvement in Tibet. Please go to the next. Okay. The Doklam standoff. The Doklam. Can you go to the next, please? Now, if you look at the map over here, the one on your right is a translated version. Sorry, is a translated version from the Chinese, what the Chinese have officially released, and this is what we have. This is more of the Indian media version. So, which is again not very clear on this. They just explained the Doklam location, and the point of differences is in the demarcation of the line. Now, why was India involved in the Doklam? India, Chinese entry into Doklam did not threaten India's sovereignty. It did not enter into Chinese. It did not enter into Indian territory. The main reason was because India and Bhutan had signed an agreement saying that the security, any kind of security threats towards Bhutan would involve India's threat also. That is the reason why India was involved in the Doklam issue. India did not have any kind of personal. In one way, yes, it was personal. It did go in direct strategic threat for them, but it did not take any land of India's. Can you just go back to the point Doklam? Yeah. So, the infrastructural development in Doklam was to do with the sovereign territory of Bhutan and not India. But because of the treaty that was signed, India was compelled, or India was obligated to go and intervene into this region. It's also because of the sensitivity to the Siliguri corridor and the northeast region. Of course, Chinese infrastructural build-up in that region, I say, is more than just roads. It is something which goes beyond just normal infrastructure. After 2 months, again, as we all know, there was a cooling off period in the two armies. Now they have gone back 150 meters from the disputed line, and there are a lot of patrolling also that's going on even today. but when it will spark off again, that we're not sure. So that was the second tool that I've used. Now the third tool okay, next. Yeah. This is a satellite image of the Doklam region. Okay, but it's still not clear. This is what was given in the Diplomat. Okay, Diplomat is a good reference, source of reference. So it was given there, but there's been no demarcation. It's just that if you can see that the China's turning point is located over here, while it was assumed that the build-up would come further over here. So expected directions of road extension towards Jamperi. Okay, so there is a road extension towards this, towards the disputed area. This is the Indian outposts at Doklam. This is the Indian outposts. So what we would see is that this side is the Sikkim and the Nathula, which the territories are not disturbed at all. There's no kind of intervention. There's no kind of dispute in that part, in the west. But it's only towards the Bhutan side. Okay, let's go to the next. Now we come to the third. Tool of engagement that China has been using, and in the recent years, Nepal's influence in China's influence in Nepal has been incrementally developing, and India's position in the recent years has again, somehow diminished. According to the government statistics, China has been the highest FDI partner with Nepal in the past 3 years, from 17-18, 16-17, and 15 and 16, where it has been said that 80% of the FDI comes from China. So China has, in a huge way, it has replaced India. India was number one before India's economic investments, but that has been replaced. The main areas of investments were in energy, manufacturing and tourism sectors, hydropower plants, cement factories, airports, railways, telecommunication. So these are the areas where China has invested heavily. What is very surprising to me is that the returns that the China would get in these investments is minimal. It's something that it's very negligible. It's something that China will not benefit from. But why is China investing so much of money into this country? What is it trying to do? Is it trying to wean off India? Is it trying to wean off Nepal from India? It has, strategic interests more than just what money can bring. It is trying to, change the satellite situation. Nepal is no more, it cannot be totally called the satellite state for India now, as it was earlier. 16-17, India, there was just one figure for 1 year. India invested 46 million and US invested about 9 million. That was, India ranked second and US ranked third. That was in 2016-17. But you can see the change, you can see the differences. 76 million again. And then this 17-18 and 16-17, there was a quadruple growth of FDIs. So it's not, please don't think that there's been a mistake. 427 million is correct and 76 million is correct. It has quadrupled. Okay, so within a period of 1 year, they have really, really pumped in a lot of money in this country. Though I'm not a Nepal expert, but a little bit I want to give you on the Nepalese politics, the internal domestic politics, and how China has actually. I just want to show you the difference between how India has involved itself and how China is involved. I'm not an expert, but just give you a kind of overview of it. Just come to the next. All right. Political involvement. Now, if you look at India's political involvement in Nepal, it was said that Nepal's policies, all its domestic policies, are made not from its parliament, but made from the Indian embassy. There was a saying once upon a time. It was the Indian embassy that used to make all kinds of policies for Nepal. So India was literally, it was Nepal was in the grips of India. It was controlling Nepal. Now, if you see the transition from a monarchy to a parliamentary democracy, which again shifted to a federalist structure, there was a lot of domestic changes, ever since the replacement of monarchy. And as there were domestic changes, also there was also a global outreach. The external changes also happened simultaneously, and by external I mean that China's influence began to grow in this region. K.P. Sharma Oli's the present Prime Minister, he talks about when he was campaigning for his election, he talked about revising the 1950s treaty. And this has been a very, very contentious and unsatisfactory factor for the Nepalese. They're really not happy with the 1950 treaty because they see a lot of imbalance. Of course, the population, from the neighboring states and vis-a-vis the Nepal's population, it does not, and then the two sides can come and settle and trade. It does work well for the one who has a larger population, but for the Nepalese, they saw themselves being drowned because of this treaty, and they were definitely not in favor. It was brought into limelight when K.P. Oli talked about it. It was there before also, but K.P. Oli made it a major agenda in his election campaign. Now, India's involvement into Nepalese politics has been very, very deep. It goes really deep. Most of the changes, a lot of the entire Maoist movement itself, they say it was instigated by New Delhi. A lot of instability. Anyone who went against the Indian policies would be removed, and a pro-Indian leader would be replaced over there. So India's hands were quite deep into Nepalese politics. In the 1971, 88, and 2015 was 3 times when Nepal faced severe blockade. 15 was extremely severe, and this is when 15 brought about a change. When the blockade happened with India, then 15, China was the one that intervened and gave a lot of assistance to Nepal. This was a game